Great. I'm actually having a technical problem here, but as long as you can see my presentation, that's most important. Uh, Thank you very much for having me speaking to this group of teachers. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Paul Golberg. I'm the founder of XReading. However, before creating XReading, I was teaching for 20 years, primarily at the university level. Okay, and I've been in Japan for 15 years, started teaching extensive reading with my students, having them read graded readers every week. And what I discovered quite quickly is extensive reading is essential. Okay, my presentation is going to be predominantly about XReading, but I first want to explain why I created XReading. It's because I found out, I discovered extensive reading is an essential part of students' language learning process. There's different ways of explaining it. I found the simplest way is just a very simple analogy. I like tennis because I think everybody knows the game of tennis. If this guy wants to become the best tennis player he can be, what does he have to do? He has to practice the skills: forehand, backhand, serving, footwork, strategy. Those are all the skills of tennis. But if he only practices the skills, will he become a great tennis player? Probably not, because what else does he need to do? Well, he needs to practice playing the game, okay? And it's so obvious. No tennis coach would ever tell their tennis students, oh, don't bother playing, just practice the skills. But that's what often happens in language acquisition or in the language classroom. We teach our students vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation without giving them the time to use it in a meaningful way. And that's what extensive reading is all about, giving students a chance to use the skills we as teachers are teaching them in a meaningful way. For those of you who like more empirical evidence, there's research that shows if students read 200,000 words, they make significant gains, statistically significant gains in their English ability. Okay, but 200,000 words sounds like a lot, okay? But it's actually possible if students are doing extensive reading. Because if you can get your students to read just 15 minutes per day, whether in class or out of class, it's possible, and I'll show you why. With extensive reading, the average speed students can read, not their first book, not their second book, but after doing reading for a few weeks with easy books, can read about 150 words per minute. If they can read 15 minutes per day, how many minutes will it take to reach 200,000 words? About 1,333 minutes. If you divide that by days, it's 88 days. It doesn't happen overnight. 88 days is quite a long time, but it's possible. With intensive reading, and I don't know where everybody's watching this from, but I'm mostly familiar with Japan. When students do intensive reading like TOEFL or TOEIC or reading the newspaper, they have a lot of unknown words. They need the dictionary. They need to check different word meanings in the dictionary. It really slows them down. Research shows that the average speed is about 17 words per minute. If students read 15 minutes per day, how long will it take to reach 200,000 words? 11,000 minutes or more than 2 years. Okay, so really, while intensive reading is important and students need to do it, it's not going to give them enough input that they need. Okay, so they need a balance of both. Okay, that's why I believe extensive reading is essential. However, there are a lot of challenges, as was brought up by the previous speaker, that teachers find implementing an extensive reading program. Okay, these challenges are a lack of books. Okay, as she points out, at Feng, they have 3,000 graded readers, but 4,000 books. It's not really enough, even though 3,000 is a lot. My university, we had 10,000 books and 2,000 students, but still wasn't quite enough. Lack of class sets, again, brought up in the previous presentation. Extensive reading is often about students choosing their own book. But there are big advantages to having students read the same book because you can do more engaging activities. However, it's very rare that a library will have an entire class set worth of books. And if they do, it's just going to be 1 or 2 titles. Monitoring if students are actually reading. Unfortunately, cheating is an issue, especially when students are trying to get a high grade. Tracking and recording what they've read over time is going to be difficult for teachers. getting students to read regularly. I was fortunate. I was teaching at a very good university. If I told my students, please read 20 books this semester, they would all do it. However, most of them would wait until the last week of the semester. Not really what we want, is it? Integrating audio. Maybe most of you are familiar that graded readers generally come with audio. You can see right here, there's a CD over here, CD over here. This is great, except for the fact that nobody has CD players anymore, especially young students. So those CDs actually are quite useless. And finally, accessibility of the library is limited. And when I thought of this point, it was because students are going home at night or it's the weekend. I hadn't considered a global pandemic, but clearly during these times when students are not coming to campus, extensive reading becomes much more difficult if students can't get access to the books. Because of all these problems, I thought, well, there has to be a better solution. I looked for one, I couldn't find one. I said, you know what, I'm going to make it myself. The solution I came up with is XReading, a virtual library of graded readers students can access anywhere, anytime with no limitations. And the mission is simply making extensive reading easier for us teachers, more accessible for students, and profitable for publishers so they're willing to support a system like this. Okay, it's a quick overview. It's an online library of over 1,300 graded readers from almost every major publisher. A key point is we give unlimited simultaneous use. That means every student can read every book at the same time. So one, that means any book can be a class reader, and it's 1,300 books per student. So at a place like Feng, which I believe has, again, 4,000 students, that would be equivalent to a library of 5 million graded readers. Okay. Works on computers and mobile devices. We have the audio, quizzes, background information for the books, and a standardized level system. Okay, it's then linked to a learner management system, or an LMS. This allows teachers to track all of their students' reading progress, not only how many books they read, how many words they read, how many minutes they read, and their reading speed. Very important for extensive reading. You can assess their understanding through the quizzes, guide their selection, and assign activities. Okay. Works on computers, works on tablets, works on smartphones. A key point is we use adaptive text, not PDF. So on a computer or tablet, it makes almost no difference. It's on a smartphone, it makes a huge difference. This is adaptive text. This is a PDF. Obviously, if someone's going to read a PDF, they're going to have to pinch and zoom, really not very convenient. We have 14 levels of books, and as you can see, there are books at all different levels, a little bit fewer at the higher levels, but those books are much longer, so students can still spend a lot of time reading. Okay, I'm going to spend the rest of my presentation giving you a quick demonstration. First, the student side, and then the teacher side. Okay, so when students need to do 3 easy things: log in, select the book, and read. Hopefully they can handle that. So a student logs in, they'll see the big green Add Book button. They press that, they'll see the library of all the books. They can browse or narrow by level, genre, things like that, or adding some unique categories, for example, protagonist. So if a student wants to find every book with a female young adult protagonist, can find them instantly. A student can start reading immediately by pressing Read Now, or pressing the yellow More Information button, which is supposed to be like going to the real library. It will give them the back cover summary and the metadata. How many words? Is it British English? Is it American English? Things like that. They can read the first 5% of the book before checking it out. They can listen to the first minute of the audio. More importantly, we have character lists, because students often complain one of the most difficult aspects of extensive reading is keeping track of the characters. So we are creating character lists for every book and indicating the importance of the character, so they know if this is somebody they need to remember. And maybe most important of all, ratings. I wish I could say every graded reader in the world is wonderful, but like with everything else, there are some good ones, some better ones, and some not so good ones. So how can we know which are the better books? Well, we let students rate them, and then students can choose books using the ratings from their peers. Okay, if the student says, this is the book I want, they select it. This is what it looks like on a computer. Most important to note is this progress bar here on the top left. If we press next, the progress bar moves forward. We can go back, but instead we will continue going forward. The progress bar moves forward. When a student stops reading, their position will get saved in the book. So if they read to chapter 2 and stop, later they log in, it will bring them right back to chapter 2. Okay, when we close the book, this shows the kind of data that is collected. We were just reading A Little Princess. It's level 2, 2,044 words. It tracks how many words we've read. It doesn't really know if we've read, but that's how many words are on the screen. 16% of the book, it can calculate. More importantly, it tracks the student's reading time, 22 seconds. Therefore, it can calculate their reading speed. This is extremely important for 2 reasons. Number 1 is, as we've talked about repeatedly today, reading fluency is an important part of extensive reading, but most teachers don't have any idea what their students' reading speed is. So this is a great way to track it. The second benefit is, again, going back to the unfortunate occurrence of cheating, it's a very, very good way to catch cheaters, okay? Because when I see 445 words per minute, I'm certain none of my students can read that fast. I'm a nice guy, so I don't usually accuse a student of cheating. I'll just be like, oh, hello, Toshiko, congratulations on reading a book this week. However, I noticed you read it in 5,000 words in 2 minutes. Could you please explain that? And the student will know she's been caught. You might think, well, next time, students are very tricky. The student will log in, open the book, and do something else. Not that easy because we have an activity timer built into the book. Meaning, if a student opens the book and walks away or goes to a different browser tab, goes to Instagram or something like that, after 1 minute, there'll be a pop-up that says, hello, are you really here? If the student doesn't reply immediately, the book closes automatically. XReading cannot stop 100% cheating, but it definitely makes it a lot easier to catch and reduce cheating. Some additional features, it's an online system, so students can go to the view settings, they can change the size of the print, the margins, even the background color could be important depending where they're reading. We have quizzes for every book. These are very simple quizzes designed specifically for extensive reading. When a student finishes the book, they can take this quiz just to get a confirmation they understood the main points. Students can rate the books, and that's where we get the ratings from that I showed you earlier. They can also write a short review. We've integrated the audio. Again, the audio is very important. The publishers put it on CD, but we have integrated the audio right into the book. However, there are some distinct differences between reading and listening. The biggest difference, in my opinion, is speed. Students read at their own speed, but they're forced to listen at the speed of the speaker of the audio. Therefore, we have integrated the audio at 5 speeds. The original from the publisher, 10% slower, 20% slower, 10% faster, 20% faster, but very importantly, without distortion. Okay, I'm going to let you listen for a quick sample. This is about 20 seconds. This is the original speed from the publisher.
Chapter 1, Down the Rabbit Hole. Alice was beginning to get very bored. She and her sister were sitting under the trees. Her sister was reading, but Alice had nothing to do.
Okay, of course it depends on the student, but from my experience, most students find that audio much too slow. So I'm going to speed it up the full 20%, and you can determine yourself, does it sound natural or sound strange?
Alice was beginning to get very bored. She and her sister were sitting under the trees.
Okay, even at the full 20% faster, I think you can hear it sounds very natural. Now, while reading and listening together can be very beneficial for students, something happens if they're doing it for a long period of time. Students tend to default to their stronger skill. So for Japanese students, they will actually stop listening and just focus on the reading because they can read with greater proficiency than they can listen. But that's not universal. In the Middle East, for example, Saudi Arabian students, they will actually close their eyes and focus only on the audio because they can listen with greater proficiency than they can read. The reason I mention this is, what if you want your students to practice listening and not reading, but you want them to benefit from the support of the book? Well, there's a setting here called text and audio accessibility. You can turn off the audio, they can't listen, or you can turn off the text and they can't read. I don't suggest doing both. Anyway, if you want to see what it will look like if you make it allow audio only, this is what the students will see. They can listen, see the pictures, but they can't read. Okay, moving on to XReading for teachers. The main thing is viewing your students' data. Okay, so when a teacher logs in, they can see all of their students' data right here. They can see all of their classes. These are my 3 classes. I will select one and I can see every student, and instantly I can see how many books they've read, how many minutes they've read, how many words they've read, how many minutes they've read, their average reading speed, and their average quiz score. This can be downloaded to Excel. I can filter by different dates. I can get the data how I need to see it. I can then select a specific student and I can see every book the student has read, when they read, how much they read. If they have not passed the quiz or their reading speed is too high, it gets highlighted in pink. If a student has a complaint, or maybe their battery died while they were taking the quiz, I can reset the quiz or change their reading data. A feature we recently added because of the pandemic and students having to be taught remotely, many teachers complain, well, I want my students to read in class, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but how do I know if they're really reading? Well, we added a new feature called live monitoring to solve this problem. There's a tab here. Again, this is on my students. I will press live monitor. It takes a moment, and the system will tell me exactly what my students are doing at this moment. So dark green means they're reading or taking a quiz. Light green means they're probably in the library looking for a book. Gray means they're not logged in, they're probably absent. And the very important one is pink, means they're logged in, but they're not using the website right now. Maybe go off doing something else. Okay, so it's a very useful tool for teachers. Also, teachers can restrict the library on these different criteria. So these are the 14 levels in XReading. If I uncheck any of these, students will not see those books. The one I use most often as a teacher is words in a story. I told my students, please read 1 book a week, but I don't want them choosing very, very short books. I will just uncheck, and the shortest book they will see is 3,000 words. Let's say you want all of your students to read the same book, like we heard in the previous presentation, for a class reader. Well, you can go to select specific title, and I've chosen the book Egghead. Okay. Now I submit this. When a student presses add book, they will see only the book Egghead. Okay. So this makes it very easy to get students to read the book that you want them to read. It could be 1 book, could be 2 books, something like that. Next thing I want to talk about is MReader. In the previous presentation, you heard the term MReader mentioned. MReader is a website with quizzes for thousands and thousands of graded readers. I think 8,000. Does not have the books, but it has the quizzes. And we have integrated these into XReading. Why have we done that? Is it because it allows schools that already have a physical library to integrate their library into XReading. So you don't have to discard your physical library. So how it works is there's a button called Allow Physical Books. You turn that to yes. Then let's say a student goes to the real library and chooses this book. This book is not in the XReading library. Okay, but they get it from the real library, they read it, then they go to add book. Oh, now they're given a choice, digital or physical. They choose physical, they have to search for it. Oh, here it is. Again, that book, which is not in XReading, will show up in their reading history. We don't know any of their data, but if they take the quiz, and if they pass the quiz, we will give them credit for that book. Okay. Finally, I just want to mention some features that we're adding for the near future. We're constantly improving the website. We're adding a speed reading component, like this Reading for Speed and Fluency textbooks, which will encourage students to read short passages very quickly, and we will graph their progress for them. Pre-reading vocabulary activities, they can learn the words before they start the book. Journal component, you can have your students write reviews, summaries, anything the teacher wants. A leaderboard to have competitions. XReading for independent authors. If anybody wants to write their own graded reader and get paid royalties, they can add it to XReading as an independent author. And finally, an interactive dictionary. Students will be able to tap on a word and instantly get the meaning specific to this context. Okay, that word will then get saved to their personal word list. We will indicate which of the high frequency words that they should learn, the low frequency words they should ignore, and we'll then give them games and activities for practicing their personal word list. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you want to have questions now, or I think there's a panel coming up. You can save your questions for then. Also, just want to mention, if any teachers want a free trial, you can contact me. XReading is not free, unfortunately, because I have to pay the publishers, but we can give teachers a free trial to check the system out. Okay, Michael, thank you very much. I hope that was clear, and we can move on to the panel discussion.